Is Brock completely out of the picture now? Is that no longer an option?
No, he's not. He's not out of the
So
picture.
there still is a chance that you could sign him.
Absolutely. I think Jones, DC, and Stipe are all 3 good fights for Cormier, if Cormier wants to do 3 more fights.
You know, as Dana said Saturday, the Lesnar thing's still out there. That's a fun fight. And, you know, I've gotten a lot of DC is very vocal about Jon Jones, but he's willing to fight Brock Lesnar. No one knows what Brock Lesnar and I have going on in terms of drug testing. The drug testing for Brock could be so stringent that it would be insane. It would be as big as it's ever been. But nobody knows that but the people on the absolute inside. So if he was to make it through all that stuff and got to a fight, then it would be worth it. But if he didn't, then I would fight Stipe Miocic. 100%. Stipe's a very respectful guy. Longest reigning heavyweight champ of all time, or most defenses in heavyweight championship history. Respectful, does things the right way. And I made a promise to him. I said if I didn't fight Brock, I would fight him. And I intend to honor that.
Nick Diaz, I believe, said recently that he's actually not going to fight George Masvidal on that card in March in Las Vegas. He said he's not doing it. Nick Diaz. Any response? Any clarification on that?
I think that's pretty clear. All you got to do is watch his Instagram. I don't think it looks like he's training for a fight.
So that fight's not happening. That's
yeah,
it.
No.
Okay.
We've heard Jeff Nowitzki talk about the picogram that's in his system now is like a child byproduct to like a parental substance. So at one point he had to ingest the main substance, and now this is just kind of little tiny flecks of leftover. They're not really benefiting him. Well, and it could potentially go on forever that these little tiny pieces are being released.
Their whole sticking point was the amount was so small, there's no possible way he could have ingested or injected it.
Right, re-ingested or injected it.
Which is so ridiculous. It's what was left of the other larger amount.
That's what I'm saying.
Dummies.
So, and that was probably years ago, but maybe before USADA, maybe he was taking those steroids to become, you know, one of the greatest of all time. So I just have a hard time wrapping my head around it. So now the whole greatest of all time conversation to me is really murky because I don't know how to really deem that. You know, how do you go from an era where steroids and PEDs and all that were allowed to supposedly where it's not allowed, but it kind of is because not everybody's being drug tested, to now introducing USADA, who has really just kind of made a mess of it all. So I don't know how to really dictate that. You know, I want to think that the greatest of all time, I'm going by a should be clean basis. Mm-hmm. That's why I can't consider Jon Jones the greatest of all time. But if we allowed it for everybody, yeah, if everybody was using steroids, then of course Jon Jones would be.
This is a Gustafsson that I thought was better from the first time that they fought. You just couldn't see it on fight night because Jon Jones was able to neutralize everything that he wanted to do. And there were some things that Gustafsson could have done better. I didn't think he was feinting enough. I didn't think he was throwing enough kicks against Jones. But whatever it is, yeah, this is a tough situation for Gustafsson. And, you know, my ledger also reads 0-3 in title fight. So I can relate to that. I just don't see other challenges for Gustafsson either. That makes a lot of sense, that where he can go in there and make a lot of money. Hopefully he did make a lot of money in this fight against Jon Jones. He had to deal with a lot, and you have to credit this Swedish warrior for even taking this fight. I don't think there were a lot of guys who would have taken this fight given the circumstances. So while Jon Jones had to deal with a lot of bullshit, Gustafsson kind of had to as well because of that chaos that kind of followed Jon Jones. So a huge credit to Gustafsson for even taking this and dealing with all the punches that he was dealing with outside of the octagon. But, you know, I would expect him to retire, not because he's this washed-up fighter, but just the circumstances of where he's at in his career at this point. And you mentioned a lot of the things that he had to deal with. He was only taking about one fight a year. And, you know, I think hopefully he's been smart with his money. And he can retire, you know, to his family in Sweden and be secure about that.
I didn't understand quite the thing about Jon Jones and the California Commission about possibly testing for whatever.
Well, so here's what happens. So all the stuff, all the stuff that happened before this, the testing and all the stuff. They tested him in California too, but there's drug tests the night of the fight too. You get drug tested tonight or whenever it is, So he has to pass those drug tests too. The difference is when you're in competition, they usually test for recreational drugs too, marijuana, cocaine, and all these different things. Jon Jones' future depends on a lot of different drug testing. This guy needs to keep passing drug tests. He needs to stay clean, stay straight, keep training, stay in the gym, keep winning, and this guy can completely turn his life around.
Okay, so what would happen if you didn't pass a test after tonight?
I'm going to kill myself.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want that to happen, sorry.
Huh?
I wouldn't want that to happen.
Well, thank you, ma'am. Some other people in here would.
Nick Diaz, Jorge Masvidal. Is that officially on? Is that happening?
As far as I know, sitting right here, right now, that fight's on. It's on.
So that fight's not happening. That's
yeah.
it.
No.
Okay.
Hey,